The grand ballroom was alive with excitement. The air was filled with the sound of chatter, laughter, and the soft clink of champagne glasses. Guests moved gracefully through the luxurious venue, admiring the delicate decorations and the sparkling chandeliers that hung from the high ceiling. The wedding of Lily and Alex was about to begin, and everything was perfect. Lily, the bride-to-be, stood in front of the large mirror in her bridal suite, her heart racing. She couldn't help but smile at her reflection. Her long white gown shimmered under the soft lights, and her hair, styled to perfection, framed her face. She felt like a princess, ready to step into the next chapter of her life with Alex, the man she loved. But despite the joy surrounding her, there was a heaviness in the air that Lily couldn't shake. It wasn't the stress of the wedding day or the butterflies in her stomach. It was the cold, watchful eyes of Alex's mother, Mrs. Thompson, who stood a few feet away, barely hiding the disdain in her gaze. Mrs. Thompson, a tall woman with a stern face and perfectly groomed silver hair, had been difficult from the start. Lily had tried to make peace with her, but nothing seemed to please her. Every little gesture, every word spoken, seemed to be met with disapproval. And today, on Lily's wedding day, Mrs. Thompson's cold stare was more intense than ever. She watched as Lily moved around the room, speaking with the bridal party and arranging her veil. Mrs. Thompson's eyes narrowed as she studied every small detail. There was something calculating in her expression, as if she were looking for a flaw, waiting for Lily to make a mistake. Lily didn't notice. She was lost in the moment, too excited about the wedding to pay much attention to Mrs. Thompson's icy gaze. But those who were watching closely, especially the wedding planner and the bridesmaids, could see the tension building. Mrs. Thompson wasn't just another mother of the groom. She was determined to make sure that Lily was the right choice, and she wasn't about to let this wedding happen without ensuring that Lily passed a very specific test. It wasn't just that Mrs. Thompson wanted to approve of Lily. She needed to. She had always been a woman of control, and she had made it clear from the start that she wasn't going to let anyone marry her son without first proving their worth. As Lily posed for a few photos with her bridesmaids, Mrs. Thompson subtly turned away and made a phone call. Her voice was low and serious, her words measured. She was coordinating something, a small test, a challenge, something that would test Lily's character without her knowing. Back in the bridal suite, Lily was completely unaware of the secret plan that was about to unfold. She chatted happily with her friends, her nerves slowly turning into excitement. The thought of marrying Alex filled her with joy. But even as she smiled and laughed, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She felt an unease, as if the air itself was charged with something unspoken. And then, just as the final touches were being made, Lily caught sight of Alex through the door. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and he smiled at her warmly. In that instant, all her doubts seemed to melt away. She was ready. Ready for the ceremony. Ready to walk down the aisle. Ready to spend the rest of her life with the man she loved. But Mrs. Thompson was still watching. From a distance, she observed Lily's every move, her expression unreadable. She had noticed Lily's brief moment of joy when she locked eyes with Alex, but she wasn't impressed. She wasn't interested in emotions. She was interested in testing Lily's ability to handle the pressures of the family, the pressures that came with marrying into the Thompson family legacy. Her test would come soon. As Lily made her way down the hall to the ceremony, Mrs. Thompson's eyes followed her. She didn't want to wait any longer. It was time. She needed to know if Lily had what it took to be a part of the family. What was Mrs. Thompson planning? Was she about to test Lily's composure, her grace, or her ability to handle pressure? Or perhaps it was something else entirely, a test of her intelligence, her quick thinking, or her ability to adapt to unexpected situations. Lily had no idea what was coming. But Mrs. Thompson was determined to find a flaw. If Lily failed this test, she would never be allowed to marry Alex. There was no room for mistakes in Mrs. Thompson's world, and she had made it clear from the start that Lily needed to prove herself. As Lily approached the aisle, Her mind was focused on one thing: Alex. She was lost in the moment, unaware that her future mother-in-law was preparing to test her in ways she couldn't even imagine. The suspense was palpable. The audience at the wedding, including the other guests and the wedding planner, felt the tension in the air. There was something happening behind the scenes, something hidden beneath the surface. The smile on Mrs. Thompson's face was a thin veneer, masking a plan she had been waiting to set in motion. Would Lily pass this secret test, or would Mrs. Thompson's cold judgment tear them apart before the ceremony even began? Suspense hook. What test is Mrs. Thompson planning for Lily? Why does she seem so determined to find a flaw in her? The grand ceremony hall was now filled with guests, their excited chatter blending with the soft melodies of a string quartet playing in the background. The atmosphere was perfect, elegant, romantic, and filled with anticipation for the upcoming union between Lily and Alex. Guests were seated in neatly arranged rows, eagerly waiting for the bride to walk down the aisle. Lily stood just off stage in the bridal suite, adjusting the lace of her dress one last time. She could hear the whispers of the guests and the faint strains of the wedding music, but all her focus was on the moment ahead. Her heart raced as she imagined walking down the aisle, seeing Alex standing at the altar, waiting for her. She couldn't wait for this day to finally arrive. But as Lily adjusted the final piece of her wedding veil, she caught a glimpse of Mrs. Thompson, who was seated in the front row, her cold eyes locked onto her. The older woman's gaze made Lily feel uneasy again, as if she were under a microscope. Lily quickly shook off the feeling, taking a deep breath to steady her nerves. She was about to marry Alex, the man she loved, and nothing, not even Mrs. Thompson, could ruin this moment. Meanwhile, Mrs. Thompson sat in her seat, her expression unreadable. She watched Lily with a careful intensity, a small smile playing on her lips. She had been planning this day for weeks, knowing that the moment was approaching when she would put her test into action. Lily had no idea, but Mrs. Thompson was about to challenge her in a way she could not have imagined. Just as the wedding music began to swell and the doors opened, Mrs. Thompson rose to her feet. She turned to speak with the wedding planner, who had been standing beside her, giving instructions to the bridesmaids. Mrs. Thompson's voice was low but stern. "The bride will need to be more prepared," she said, her tone cutting through the air. "There is no room for mistakes." The wedding planner nodded nervously, but Mrs. Thompson didn't seem to care about the planner's discomfort. She turned her attention back to Lily, who was now walking down the aisle, her eyes fixed on Alex. Mrs. Thompson's plan was set in motion. Lily, caught in the whirlwind of the moment, didn't notice Mrs. Thompson's subtle movements. But the guests did. They could feel the tension between the mother of the groom and the bride-to-be, even as Lily made her way down the aisle. She was radiant, her smile lighting up the entire room, but there was a hint of unease in her steps. The ceremony proceeded without incident until the vows were about to be exchanged. Mrs. Thompson, having taken her seat again, leaned over to one of the closest guests, a distant relative of Alex's, and whispered something into their ear. Her words were barely audible, but they were sharp and deliberate. "Watch carefully," Mrs. Thompson murmured. "I want to see how she reacts when things aren't as perfect as she thinks." As the officiant asked the couple to exchange vows, Lily began speaking her promises to Alex, her voice steady and clear. But just as she finished her vows, something unexpected happened. The wedding planner, nervous under Mrs. Thompson's watchful gaze, had made a mistake. The wedding rings, which were meant to be placed on a small pillow by the officiant, were nowhere to be found. The guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few murmured, sensing the tension in the air. Lily paused, looking at Alex, then turning toward the officiant in confusion. Mrs. Thompson's eyes gleamed with interest, watching closely as the situation unfolded. The officiant, trying to remain calm, turned to the wedding planner. "Where are the rings?" he asked quietly. The wedding planner went pale, looking around frantically. "I'm so sorry. I thought I had them, but I'm not sure where they are." The guests exchanged glances, their whispers growing louder. Some of them noticed the anxiety in the wedding planner's face. The mood in the room shifted. Lily felt her stomach tighten. What should she do? She had spent months preparing for this moment, and now everything was unraveling. But then, to everyone's surprise, Lily stepped forward, her face calm and composed. Without missing a beat, she smiled at the officiant and said, "It's okay. We can work with this." She turned to Alex and took his hand, giving him a reassuring smile. The guests watched in silence, waiting to see what she would do next. In the midst of this stressful moment, Lily had taken control. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't showing any sign of frustration. Instead, she remained graceful and composed. The wedding planner, though clearly embarrassed, breathed a sigh of relief at Lily's calm response. The officiant nodded, impressed by how she handled the pressure. But from the front row, Mrs. Thompson's sharp eyes narrowed. She wasn't impressed. In fact, this was exactly what she was hoping for. Lily had passed the first part of her test. Mrs. Thompson had planned for something to go wrong during the ceremony. She wanted to see how Lily would react when everything didn't go as planned. In that brief moment of chaos, Mrs. Thompson had gotten her answer. Lily had shown composure, calmness, and grace under pressure, but that wasn't enough. Mrs. Thompson was looking for something deeper, something more. As Lily and Alex stood there, the tension of the moment began to ease. The rings were eventually found, and the ceremony continued. The guests applauded, relieved that the small hiccup had been handled so gracefully. But in the back of her mind, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She had passed the first test, but what was next? The audience could sense that Mrs. Thompson wasn't done yet. There was still more to come, and Lily's challenges were far from over. Suspense hook. Was this just a small mistake, or is Mrs. Thompson planning something more to test Lily? What other challenges will Lily face on her wedding day? The ceremony was back on track, but the tension lingered in the air. Lily, although visibly relieved that the rings had been found, couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Every time she glanced over at Mrs. Thompson, the older woman's cold eyes seemed to follow her every movement. Despite the outward calm, Lily could sense the undercurrent of something deeper, something more calculating. The vows were exchanged. The kiss was shared. The guests cheered, clapping their hands in approval as Alex and Lily were officially married. But the sense of relief that washed over the room was fleeting. Lily knew something was still brewing, something that might undo all the joy of the day. As they walked down the aisle, now husband and wife, Alex leaned down to whisper in her ear, "You were amazing up there. You handled it so well. I'm proud of you." Lily smiled, feeling a rush of warmth, but that nagging feeling didn't go away. It wasn't the ceremony that was bothering her. It was Mrs. Thompson. The reception began immediately after, and the newlyweds made their way to the grand ballroom, where the party had already started. The atmosphere was light, filled with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. The couple shared their first dance to a beautiful love song, the soft glow of the chandelier lights above them, casting a romantic sheen over the room. However, as the night went on, Mrs. Thompson didn't seem to relax. She sat at her table in the back, her eyes locked on Lily. She hadn't spoken much since the ceremony, but her presence was looming, like a shadow hanging over the celebration. Lily tried to ignore her, focusing on the joy of the moment with Alex and the guests, but Mrs. Thompson's cold demeanor made it hard to fully enjoy the evening. Lily was about to join a group of friends to have a chat when she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around to see Mrs. Thompson standing behind her, her expression unreadable. "Lily," she said, her tone polite but distant, "may I have a word with you?" Lily's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she followed Mrs. Thompson to a quieter corner of the room, away from the noise and laughter. The older woman led her to a small table by the window, where the bright city lights outside bathed the room in soft hues. "I hope you're enjoying the night. Mrs. Thompson began, her voice measured. "It's a beautiful wedding. Alex has always had excellent taste in choosing people. He certainly chose well in you." Lily smiled politely, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this conversation. Mrs. Thompson wasn't known for her kindness, and Lily knew that the woman didn't speak without purpose. "I'm glad you think so," Lily said, her tone steady but cautious. "It's been a dream come true." Mrs. Thompson stared at her for a moment, her gaze sharp. Then, as if shifting gears, she said, "But I've been thinking. I've seen so many women in Alex's life, and I've watched how they react under pressure, how they handle things when things don't go perfectly." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "I hope you're not just a pretty face, Lily. I hope you can handle more than just the easy moments." Lily felt a cold chill slide down her spine. Her smile faltered slightly. She knew Mrs. Thompson wasn't just making casual conversation. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice softer now, trying to read between the lines. Mrs. Thompson's lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I'll tell you what I mean. The world is filled with challenges. It's easy to shine when everything is perfect, when everything goes according to plan. But I've seen women like you fall apart the second something goes wrong. And let me be clear, Lily, I don't want my son to end up with someone who can't stand the heat when life gets tough." Lily's heart raced, but she refused to show any sign of fear. She couldn't back down now. She was married to Alex, and she wasn't about to let his mother intimidate her. She stood tall, meeting Mrs. Thompson's gaze. "I'm not the type of woman who falls apart under pressure. I can handle whatever life throws at me." Mrs. Thompson's eyes narrowed slightly, as if measuring Lily's words. Then, with a slight nod, she added, "Good. We'll see how well you handle the next test then, won't we?" The words felt like a challenge, an invisible line drawn in the sand. Lily wasn't sure what Mrs. Thompson meant, but something in her tone suggested that the worst was yet to come. With a final glance, Mrs. Thompson turned and walked away, leaving Lily standing there with a mix of emotions swirling inside her. Was Mrs. Thompson truly testing her, or was this just her way of subtly asserting her power, trying to control the situation? Lily couldn't shake the feeling that her mother-in-law wasn't done with her yet. There was more to come, and Lily would need to be ready for whatever that might be. As she rejoined Alex at the reception, a sense of unease settled over her. Despite the festive atmosphere, she couldn't enjoy the evening fully. The fear that something was about to go wrong lingered like a storm cloud waiting to burst. The wedding reception slowly turned into a late-night celebration. The dance floor glowed with warm lights, and laughter echoed through the grand ballroom. Friends gave speeches, glasses clinked, and for a while, Lily tried her best to push away the words Mrs. Thompson had whispered. But that uneasy feeling refused to leave her. She felt like she was walking through a dream, with eyes constantly watching her, waiting for her to stumble. Then came the moment that shifted everything again. One of the waiters tapped a spoon to a glass, drawing attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "the mother of the groom would like to present a special gift to the bride." Lily froze. Alex turned to his mother, confused but smiling. "Mom, what's this?" Mrs. Thompson stood, holding a small, beautifully wrapped box. Her smile was wide, but her eyes didn't carry warmth. Just a little something, from one woman to another. She walked slowly toward Lily, the eyes of every guest following her. Cameras came out. Phones started recording. Lily's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the box. "Open it," Mrs. Thompson said softly. Lily peeled back the elegant wrapping, then opened the lid. Her smile faltered. Inside the box was a necklace, a beautiful old-fashioned piece with a blue gem. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was the note attached. Lily picked up the paper and read it. "You passed the first tests. But let's see how you handle the truth. This necklace belonged to Alex's ex-fiancé. He gave it to her too, until she left him heartbroken. Are you ready to wear her story?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. The music had stopped. All eyes were on Lily again, waiting to see what she would do. Some guests whispered, some just stared. Alex stood up in disbelief. "Mom, what is this?" Mrs. Thompson shrugged calmly, pretending to be innocent. "It's just a gift, dear. A reminder that not everything new is built without pieces of the past." Lily looked at the necklace, her face flushed with embarrassment, but not with shame. With rising strength, she stood, took a deep breath, and faced Mrs. Thompson directly. "I don't need anyone else's story," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is our beginning. Not hers, not yours. Mine and Alex." She gently closed the box and placed it on the table. "And I don't need a necklace to prove my place here." The guests stayed silent. Then, slowly, someone clapped. Then another. And soon, applause filled the room. Some were surprised. Some were impressed. Even Alex's father gave Lily a small nod of respect. Alex stepped beside Lily, proud. "That's why I love her," he said, "because she stands strong." But Mrs. Thompson didn't look defeated. She smiled, but it was tight and cold. "Very well," she said, her voice quiet. "You're stronger than I thought. But the night isn't over yet." Lily's heart dropped. She could feel it again. Mrs. Thompson still had one more plan. And this one might be the most dangerous of all. Back at their table, Lily whispered to Alex, "Why is she doing this?" Alex sighed. "She doesn't trust easily. My father always says, she thinks she's protecting me. But sometimes she pushes too hard." "But this isn't just protecting," Lily said. "This feels like she's trying to destroy something." Alex looked down, not answering. The celebration carried on, but beneath the music and dancing, a quiet storm was building. Everyone had seen the tension now. Everyone knew something wasn't right. But no one knew what would come next. Not even Lily. She held Alex's hand tightly, trying to stay calm, but her thoughts were spinning. If this was just another test, what would the final one be? Suspense hook for next part. Mrs. Thompson isn't done. But what final move could she possibly make? One big enough to stop a marriage that's already happened? Or is it not the marriage she's after, but Lily's spirit? The night wore on, but the tension from Mrs. Thompson's twisted gift still lingered in the air. Though music played and people danced, everyone at the wedding sensed the unspoken war happening behind the polished smiles. Lily tried to hold it all together. She moved gracefully, talked politely to guests, and leaned into Alex for strength. But inside, she felt like she was standing on thin ice, one step away from falling through. Back at her table, Mrs. Thompson quietly slipped out of the ballroom and walked down a silent hallway lined with flower arrangements. She took out her phone and made a call. "It's time," she said. "Are you ready?" A pause. Then a voice on the other end answered, "Yes. I'm outside." She ended the call, smirking. Back in the ballroom, Lily was laughing softly at something Alex whispered when the doors opened. A man in a black suit walked in, holding a leather folder in his hand. He didn't look like a guest. He looked official. Whispers quickly spread. People turned. Even the music stopped again. The man walked directly toward Lily and Alex. "Mrs. Lily Andrews." Lily stood up slowly. "Yes. I'm from the family legal division," he said. "You need to see this." He handed her the folder. Her hands shook as she opened it, and her heart nearly stopped. Inside was a printed document. The title read, "Private Prenuptial Agreement, Revised." She flipped the page. It had her name, Alex's name, but something was wrong. There were conditions, shocking conditions, none of which Lily had ever seen or signed. It said if Lily ever divorced Alex, she would walk away with nothing. It also claimed she had agreed to live under Mrs. Thompson's household rules, and it stated that all assets would remain in Alex's family name, unless approved by his mother. Lily looked up, confused and shaken. "I never signed this." What is this? Mrs. Thompson had returned and was standing nearby, arms crossed. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, her tone sweet but full of poison. "You didn't read the fine print. I had our family lawyer prepare it. It's just a formality, really. Just in case." Alex grabbed the folder, flipping through it angrily. "This isn't legal. You can't spring this on us after the wedding." Mrs. Thompson shrugged. "It's already been filed. And if she refuses to agree, the press might find it very interesting. You know how they love scandals." Lily's face was pale. This was no longer just about tests. This was an attack. The guests had gathered now, sensing something serious was happening. Some filmed quietly with their phones. The joy of the evening had turned into chaos. Alex faced his mother. "Why are you doing this?" Mrs. Thompson looked at her son with narrowed eyes. "Because you're blinded by love, Alex. And love fades. But a mistake like this could cost you everything." He turned to Lily. "Don't worry. I'll fix this." But Lily, surprisingly, stood firm, her voice calm but full of power. "No, Alex. I'll speak." She stepped forward, looking directly into Mrs. Thompson's eyes. "You don't want a daughter-in-law. You want control. You want someone who will say thank you while you slowly destroy her confidence." She raised the fake contract and tore it in half. Gasps filled the room. "I'm not signing away my worth. I married your son, not your shadow." The room erupted, some shocked, some cheering quietly. Mrs. Thompson's face darkened. "You'll regret that." Lily met her stare. "Not as much as you will." Then, without another word, she walked away from the spotlight, holding Alex's hand tightly. Alex looked at his mother one last time. "This ends now. You don't get to control our life." Mrs. Thompson watched them leave, her mouth tight. But her mind was racing. This didn't go to plan. And she wasn't finished. Lily and Alex sat together in a quiet room behind the ballroom. The noise of the disrupted wedding continued behind the thick doors, but here there was silence, except for the storm brewing inside both of them. Lily leaned back, taking deep breaths. Her dress still sparkled, but her face showed exhaustion, not joy. Alex held her hand. "I'm so sorry," he said again. She shook her head gently. "It's not your fault. Your mother has been planning this for a long time." Just then, Alex's phone buzzed. He picked it up and frowned. It was a message from his cousin, Jason. "Come to the parking lot. It's urgent. Bring Lily." Alex and Lily exchanged glances. He stood up, helping her to her feet. Outside, under the dim lights of the parking lot, Jason was pacing. When he saw them, he waved them over quickly, checking around like he didn't want to be seen. Jason looked nervous. "There's something you both need to know," he said. "I didn't want to get involved, but after what happened tonight, I can't stay quiet anymore." He handed Alex a small envelope. Alex opened it slowly. Inside were old photos, some of his mother, some of a much younger woman who looked familiar. Lily leaned in, her eyes widening. It was a picture of her mother. And not just any picture. It was a picture of her mother and Mrs. Thompson, smiling, sitting at a restaurant table, talking like friends. Behind them, a teenage Alex sat beside a much younger Lily. "What is this?" Lily whispered. "That's my mom, with your mom." Jason nodded. They knew each other, for years, before you two ever met again. Lily took a step back. "I don't remember this." Jason looked guilty. "Your mom wanted to keep you away from their world. From the pressure, the money, the control. Mrs. Thompson didn't want her son falling for anyone outside their class. So when you were little, they had a fight. Your mom cut ties and moved you away." Alex looked stunned. "I never knew any of this." Jason continued. "But when your mom passed, Mrs. Thompson saw her chance. She let you two find each other again in college, thinking she could manage it. But then she realized you were too strong, Lily. You weren't easy to control. That's when she started planning her tests. Lily felt dizzy. Her whole past, her mother's choices. Now it all made sense. The strange feeling she'd had when first meeting Mrs. Thompson. The cold stare, the careful words. She had been judged before she even said hello. Jason sighed. There's more. The prenup, the fake legal man, the public embarrassment. It was all part of her last plan. To push you out. To make you leave before the wedding could finish. Lily looked at Alex. She used both of us. Alex clenched his jaw. She won't win. Not this time. He turned to Jason. Thank you for telling us. It took courage. Jason nodded. I just want you both happy. Even if that means breaking family traditions. Lily held Alex's hand tightly. We're not running. We're going to finish what we started. Just then, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think you know everything. But there's still one thing I've kept hidden. Come to the hotel lounge alone. Mrs. Thompson. Lily stared at the screen. She's not done, she whispered. Alex read it too. She's trying to separate us again. But Lily shook her head. No, this time, I'll face her. Alone. Alex hesitated, then nodded slowly. I trust you. But if she crosses a line, I'll be right there. Lily walked back toward the hotel, head high, heart steady. The hotel lounge was nearly empty. A soft piano played in the corner, and the lights were low and warm. Lily walked in slowly, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. Her wedding dress still shimmered, but it was no longer a symbol of joy. It was now a symbol of strength. At the far end of the room sat Mrs. Thompson, alone, a cup of tea in her hand, untouched. She looked up as Lily approached, her expression unreadable. You came, she said, setting the cup down gently. I did, Lily replied calmly, because I want this to end, one way or another. Mrs. Thompson motioned for her to sit. Lily remained standing. There was a moment of silence between them. Then Mrs. Thompson spoke. I knew you were strong, she said, but I didn't expect you to come this far. Lily looked her in the eyes. You've tested me, lied to your son, humiliated me in front of people I don't even know. What else do you want? Mrs. Thompson paused, then reached into her handbag. She pulled out an old envelope, yellowed with age, and handed it to Lily. Lily opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, in her mother's handwriting. To whoever finds this, especially if it's my daughter Lily. I once had a friendship that turned bitter. A woman I trusted tried to decide my future, and later my daughter's. If she ever stands in your way, show her this, so she remembers that love is not controlled. It's earned. Lily looked up. Her hands were shaking slightly. She wrote this, for me, she asked. Mrs. Thompson nodded. Your mother was a brilliant woman. Too brilliant. I thought she was trying to take Alex away from the life I built. She didn't care about money or power. She just wanted you to grow up kind, honest, and free. She looked away, her voice softer now. When she died, I thought I had won. But when you and Alex found each other again, it was like she came back. In you, your eyes, your strength. It haunted me. Lily's heart beat faster. So you punished me for being like her. Mrs. Thompson sighed. No, I punished myself. By trying to protect Alex from pain, I became the one who caused it. I thought if I could find one flaw in you, I could convince him to let go. But you passed every test I gave, even the cruel ones. She looked up again, her voice finally shaking. Tonight, I watched my son choose you over his own mother, and I realized, maybe that's the best decision he's ever made. Lily took a deep breath. You don't have to like me. But if you love your son, you'll stop fighting what makes him happy. Mrs. Thompson nodded slowly. I know. Then something no one expected happened. She stood up, walked over to Lily, and held out her hand. I can't undo the pain I caused. But if you'll let me, I'd like to begin again." Lily looked at the hand. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she reached out and shook it. Just then, Alex walked into the lounge. He paused at the sight of the two women standing face to face. Lily turned to him with a small smile. "She gave me a letter. From my mom." Alex walked over, wrapping his arms around Lily. Mrs. Thompson stepped back, giving them space. "I still don't know if I deserve your forgiveness," she said quietly. "But I'll earn it, one day at a time." Lily nodded. "That's all anyone can ask." Back in the ballroom, the music played again. Guests had returned. The chaos had settled into whispers and questions. And then a surprise announcement was made. The wedding would continue. Lily walked down the aisle again, this time with her head held higher than ever. At the altar stood Alex, smiling through tears. And in the front row, Mrs. Thompson stood up for the first time and clapped.